Today I have a very special guest. His name is Daniel Kong. He's a real estate investor all the way out in Hawaii. And before I tell all about what he does now, I want you, Daniel, to give you a brief introduction of everything you do today, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah. So sorry, I think the connection's little shaky right now. Uh, can you hear
Okay,
me?
there you go. Yeah, you're back.
So let me some of the background about myself. I'm a real estate investor out of Hawaii. I actually started off as a software developer for like almost 20 years, and then I just transitioned over to become a real estate investor. It's been a small journey. They've been doing burrs, fix and flipping. Now we're kind of diving more into like the commercial and multifamily space, but it's just kind of been a journey of just growth and just kind of figuring my way out for the last 4 or 5 years. So
Wow, the last 4 or 5 years doing. Was this the first? Now I kind of want to get an idea. Was this the first step into entrepreneurship, or what was the very first thing you did, like as an entrepreneur, business
yeah, I
owner?
mean, it really was like the very first step as an entrepreneur, and it was never meant to be like an entrepreneurship thing. I think so. Fast, maybe like 4.5 years ago, I read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think a lot of us read this before, and basically this book opened my mind just to the opportunity or like the idea of passive income. And so, working as a 9 to 5 for a long period of time, I never even considered the idea of like building passive income or trying to get do something like that. So it kind of started off as like on the side of my 9 to 5, I want to kind of build up a rental portfolio using the BRRRR strategy and kind of build up like my passive income. But through the process, I kind of fell in love with real estate investing. And the more that I dove into it, the more that I did, it really does become more of like a small business and entrepreneurship as opposed to like a little side hustle. And I think there's more than one way to invest in real estate. You can do it like little by little, just like buy one house every year, or like like do like buy rental like with your excess from your W-2, slow and steady. But then I kind of just jumped into it like full force, saying like, hey, I just want to fast track this thing, and that path actually kind of leads to like entrepreneurship and kind of you just starting your own. There's so many things to like you don't know what you don't know. So that first, I think like first 2 years, it was like a big eye opener to me as far as just what it takes to kind of be successful in the investing space and like just the entrepreneur space in general.
Yeah, so you mentioned you first started a few years ago and you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. After reading that book, what did you do? What was the first thing you did?
Like the it was kind of like such a shock, like an eye opening to my senses as far as just the whole all the concepts inside there. And so like the very beginning, I was like, I can't believe like this is available. And so I just was like very like hungry. So I just went to my library or my local like bookstore and just like bought a whole bunch of books on just real estate investing and also stocks at the time. I wasn't sure which way I was gonna go yet, but then just started like reading ravenously and just like listening to a lot of podcasts. The Bigger Pockets podcast was also like a big influence in my early life. But I mean, just I probably listened to like hundreds of hours of podcasting. I literally was reading like 3 or 4 books every week, just like tearing through, like just like consuming as much. Like I was just super obsessed with just like the whole world of investing and the potential like of financial freedoms.
Wow. No, okay, you read like three, that's a lot of books. You said you were reading like three, four books a week. Now, is that trait of getting into something and then just obsessing over it and going all in at it, is that something you've always had? Is that something like, I don't know, since you're little, you got into sports? Or is there like, where did that come from? Because not a lot of people will do that.
It's funny you asked that, but yeah, like all of my friends and family know me as somebody who gets obsessed with things. And so like I think
Mm.
when I was young, I was like when I was obsessed with like a video game, I'll just play that video game like 24/7, like and like only that one video game, like none others. I just like obsess over one, like X-Men vs Street Fighter or something. Just be there like all day, every day. And then my next fad was like say I got into like rollerblading. I was like I just skate every single day of my life. I dream about it, like it's then I got into like I think like golf for a little while, jujitsu for a little while, but everything that I do, I kind of just like obsess, like really obsess about it, and like that's all I think about like day and night. So
That's hilarious because that I'm the same way. And I kind of tell people this because it's just from my experiences. I think if you really want to be good at something, you have to obsess over it. It has to be big. Like for me, it was similar when I think one of my first obsessions after sports in high school was fitness, getting into like the bodybuilding space, and you're looking at YouTube videos all day, you're consuming podcasts on fitness, you're implementing. It just becomes fun. Like, and I was the same way with video games too. And a lot of people think that, oh, if I don't have a skill set, if I'm just playing these video games, I can't do anything. It's like, no, use what you're doing in the video games and
mm,
the commitment that you're doing hours a day on that to whatever you're trying to do now. So I think that's hilarious. I didn't know that about you.
I think that's, I mean, honestly, I feel like that's a big factor in like the success. I think because when you like obsess about something, it's almost like the work you do like compounds. So it's like, yeah, let's say you put in like 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, right? Like let's say 4 hours. Versus like you just put in like straight like 8 hours or 10 hours straight. Like just the focus and the compound that happens when you just like all in, like just like almost like the world kind of like opens up doors that like weren't there if you were just to do like little at a time. So I just think like the obsession and just like when you're over it, it's just like gives you like a way better return than if you had to do it kind of casually over like this period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you first read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, you got to real estate, you started reading more books.
Mhm.
What was the thought behind you actually buying a house? Because a lot of people in real estate specifically think they can't do it if they don't have the money. Now, did you have the money or did you not? Like, what's the situation? Like, why did you think you could do it?
Yeah, so I actually didn't have any money. Well, I think I maybe had like 20 grand in my bank account, which like was, I mean, like after years of saving and working at W2, it's pretty sad, like, but I didn't have credit card debt. So, I mean, that's my one plus, but it's, yeah, when I first started, I didn't have any money. So I was just like, hey, how can I make this happen? So like just thinking creatively outside the box and listening to some what other guys have done. I actually went to like all of the banks in Hawaii, like they offer this thing called like personal lines of credit, where you just bring your credit score and your W2 like pay stub, and they'll give you like 15, 30, 15, 20, $30,000 in just a line of credit. And it's unsecured between 4 to 8%. But the beauty about a line of credit is you can borrow it out and then you're paying interest only when you have it out. Then when you pay it back, then you're not paying any interest on it anymore, right? So I kind of like I went to like all the banks in this one area in one day, and I like applied for like all the lines of credit on the same day, because when you ask the thought process behind that was like, if I ask for like if I open up one and then now the debt's gonna show up on my credit report. If I open up another one, the debt's gonna show up on my credit report. But if I apply for them all on the same day, then like none of that debt's on my credit report when I'm applying. And so I went to all my banks in one day. I got like 15, 20, 30, a whole bunch of different like lines of credit. I got probably like a little over 100 grand in just lines of credit to kind of like have access to capital.
Wow. And you were able to use that for the first house?
So yeah, so that, and also I took out a loan against my 401k. So I think you can take a maximum of 50 grand against your 401k with like no real penalties. And so like I took a 50 grand thing, and then so I live in Hawaii, and so because the price points are so high in Hawaii, there's no way to kind of play in the Hawaii market. And I thought like there's no way for me to ever buy a house or afford anything in Hawaii. I was renting at the time. I was renting a basement at the time. It was a nice little basement, but I mean nothing too spectacular. But so after all my research, I thought like, hey, like Hawaii is not a great cash flow market, and my goal is cash flow, and I don't have a whole lot of money, but I have a lot of access to borrowed money. What can I do with these resources? And the big strategy that stood out to me was the BRRRR strategy, where you're able to like buy, fix it up, rent it out, then refinance your money out, and continue to do that process over and over. And so, but then I can't afford anything in Hawaii, and it doesn't cash flow. So let's look for out of state things. So I actually started out my journey in Indianapolis, just trying to like doing the birds in Indianapolis to kind of start out.
Gotcha. I'm kind of curious. You were already familiar with the Hawaii market. Even though it's an appreciation market, why was your goal cash flow? Why was it not appreciation? Because you knew the market. Were you trying to like build an income to replace the job, or what
Well,
was that?
to be honest, I didn't know the market at all. Like, I mean, like, so
Uh,
I had like zero real estate experience, right? So like, I know nothing about construction, no zero about real estate. The only thing I knew was just what I was reading in Bigger Pockets books or listening to podcasts. So like, even like, I didn't like know any realtors. I didn't know like I was a complete like new like as far as when it comes to real estate. But then just general looking at just like the general prices of like, let's say a single family home you buy for like $1 million, which I don't have like anywhere close to for even the down payment, and then your rents for like let's say like $2,000 to $3,000 a month. The cash flow on the average is just very very hard to find cash flowing assets. Versus Indianapolis, you can buy a house for let's say 100,000 and a rent for $1,000. The cash flow on that one is like a lot higher on the exit of the BRRRR strategy. So the BRRRR strategy has a lot of different parts to it, right? But on the exit, you want the property to cash flow positive. And my goal in the beginning was to getting a passive income to replace my job as a software developer. So
got it. Got it. And are you still doing software development right now?
no, I quit in the ending of 2021 actually. So got enough
Nice.
income to replace my income in the probably like mid 2021, and then it took another 6 months to convince my wife to actually let me quit my job. And so I mean, like we had the income in, but she was just like, I'm not comfortable. Like this, it seems risky, and like so just. But then eventually she let me. She allowed me. We negotiated. It was a negotiation, but we negotiated it. So I left in 2021. I just have been doing like real estate like full time ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. Now I'm curious because you said you mentioned your wife. Now, when you started this journey in real estate, were you married at the time?
I was no, we were just it was kind of crazy. We just got to know each other. We just started dating. And then I was like, oh man, like I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, oh, I think like I should do these things. I want to like buy these houses in the Midwest and like all the things. And she like, don't do it. You're gonna lose all your money. Like, cause
Yeah.
even my coworkers were like, Daniel, you're crazy. Like, like you don't know what you're doing. Like you have no experience. You're gonna lose your money. And so they are super anti against me kind of jumping into this the journey. Although it's funny now like a few years later, now they're all like, hey Daniel, can we lend you money? Can we partner with you? Like we seen the success, and so. But yeah, I mean, like my wife was super against it. I had kind of had like, or my girlfriend at the time was very against it, and so I kind of had to negotiate with her, like, hey, like it is my money. Would you let me like? I mean, or it's my thing. Like, but I mean, it's like our future too. Like so
Right.
he doesn't want to like run it. I mean, get married into like a huge debt or like like a bad situation. So, but there was some negotiation on parts like, hey, like trust me or allow me to do this first one and see how it goes. And so like things went well, and so we kind of just snowballed in the beginning. And so after a track record of like some success, then like I got more and more trust from my wife, and so now she's with me.
Okay. Yeah, because that's funny. That was a similar situation with me. Not my girlfriend at the time, but it was my like family and friends. I'm kind of curious, what made you overcome that? Because this is actually a struggle I know and a lot of new entrepreneurs have. They're like, hey, I have a new business idea. Hey, I want to get into real estate investing. And their family or the people that are close to them, they shut them down. And they do it because they care. They care and they just want the best, or they just don't know.
Yeah.
But what made you just say, you know what, I'm like, this is worth it? I'm sure education played a role, but what made you
I
go
think
against the grain?
the biggest thing is just education. I feel like
Hmm.
the everything is risky when you don't know what you're doing. Even real estate is super risky if you don't know what you're doing. But I think the way that you solve the or lower the risk that or solve that problem is just educate yourself. And so like think like what are all the things that could go wrong, and then how can I mitigate that risk? Like what if my house burns down? What if my contractor runs away with my money? What if like my tenants leave? All the different scenarios that could happen, and then what can you do on the front end or the resource that you need to make sure that like if this happens, these are how I protect myself either proactively or like after the fact, right? And so just like I think like I just thought about everything that could go wrong, and I just found different ways to kind of mitigate those things, and then until the point where I felt like comfortable like to moving forward. And I think if you put in enough work in on the front end as far as just educating, building relationships, and building a network, then like at a certain point it's almost like a no-brainer. It's like what it's almost bulletproof like your plan, given that you're willing to put in the work. Obviously all of this stuff takes a lot of work, and then but then you put in enough work on the front end to do your due diligence and just really educate yourself on everything. I feel like there's very little risk once you get at a certain level.
Yeah, no, I like that. I love that answer because it's so true. Is when once people are terrified, it's just learn about what you're terrified about, and then figure out why, and then you
Yeah,
won't be scared anymore.
yeah,
Okay, so let's talk about that first deal in Indianapolis. You said, right?
yes.
What was that, and then how did you secure it?
So it was a burr. I mean, like I bought it from a wholesaler, so I just was networking, looking and doing research in that in the on the Indianapolis market. Kind of like dove in, just really like dug roots deep into that market, just like find like the neighborhoods, etc. Like learn about it, and then it was so we purchased it for 70,000. We put in about 30,000 in a renovation into it. Then it appraised for 140 on the back end, and then it rented for 1,000, and our mortgage was like $700 a month. So that was kind of like the real quick numbers of how that first deal went. So
Awesome. So that's a great deal already there.
yeah.
Um, how did you was the first purchase from your lines of credit, or did a lot of it come from like where'd the money come from?
Yeah,
Oh,
so it was like a combination of like my loan from my 401k and then a little bit from my lines of
okay.
credit. So I mean it was all borrowed money to do the purchase, and then the rehab, and after it's finished, the refinance paid for all the thing too, so I could put the money back into like the lines of credit, and then just like snowball and do it over and over again. So that first year in just starting out just like the we did six birds. I mean, like in Indianapolis, and then the just kept the money rolling and just like yeah, just like snowballed. So.
Sweet. For that first one, were you able to pull out all of your money back out, or did you have to leave
Yeah,
some in the?
they just get all the money out. So like
Oh,
for
that's
all
awesome.
well, just about all of our birds, we put out all of our money, or even got cash out back in the refinance process. So
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so I guess for you, what are the next steps for you? Like what are you looking to do nowadays? Because you have, the income from your real estate and you just quit your software. Like what's the goal now? Is it just to kick your feet up on the beach or I don't know, everyone has a different goal.
You know what? So it's funny when I first hit the 10,000 like a month in passive, I was like, hey, I hit my goal that I set for myself. I was able to leave my job. Like, should I just retire and like kick it on the beach? Because that was like the
Hmm.
goal like all along, But after doing some like just introspection and looking at myself, is I thought like I would probably do this for about 3 or 4 months, and I would get bored and I'd want to do something else again. Just I think it's like that the built-in like entrepreneurship or entrepreneur like the growth mindset inside of you is like you always want to be growing and go moving on to the next thing, And so at that point, then I was like, like looking at two choices, like like I'm not done with my life with like my goals. I'm gonna like set another goal, another target, and so like this, the goalposts have always been moving, and so like I think when the first when we were doing the birds and we did some birds in Hawaii, we're doing some fixing and flipping in Hawaii, and it's always trying to do like the next get to the next level, And so I think right now we've been pretty successful in our fix and flips and birds in Hawaii. And then one of the things that we looked at is because it's fix and flipping is active income, you just get killed in taxes, right? And so one of the ways to mitigate that is commercial buildings or higher um, 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 price point buildings to get some depreciation and also some cash flow like on the mainland. So because the depreciation and the cash flow works where you want to have as much building to land value ratio as possible, Hawaii is bad for that because like the it's mostly land as far as like the value of it. So a simple example is $1 million building in Hawaii is 200,000 of that is a building and $800,000 is a land, right? But in some other markets like Indianapolis or Kansas City, you buy $1 million house, $800,000 of that is the actual house, and then 200,000 is the actual land. So the tax savings on that is like a lot better. And so we're
Hmm.
actually trying to do bigger deals in like the mainland markets for commercial and multifamily to offset our taxes at the same time, build up higher cash flow and do bigger deals.
Gotcha. Well, so it sounds like the next immediate short-term game plan is to just save on the taxes now. You made income, and now it's like save the taxes even more, not have to pay. Um, but is there another thing perhaps that you're also going for outside of the just okay, the tax savings, whether it's a passion project, whether it's an income thing, real estate related or not? I'm kind of just curious, like what, because I haven't gotten to that point yet, and so I'm wondering what happens once you get there. Like, what after you figure that out, you figure out the tax savings is the goal, then for you to make more money or to do I don't know other things.
Yeah, so I mean, actually, like it's a the tax savings is great, but it's also like a two purpose because we're actually you can burn commercial buildings and you can burn multifamily. So we're actually burning two commercial buildings right now. So it's like it's crazy because you can get the huge tax savings, but you can also burn them at the same time you're doing this. And so we're burning the commercial buildings, and then we're just kind of getting into the multifamily space right now as far as just like the there's like a lot of opportunity I think in the multifamily in the commercial space just because it's always at the end of the day it comes down to your return on your time, right? So like in Indianapolis, like we on a typical deal we buy for like 70, I mean you put 30 and you appraise for 140. I mean you get like 30 grand in equity on every deal that you do. In Hawaii, the deals are you buy them for 500, you put in 200, you can sell them for a million, you can make 100 or 200 on every deal. So the return on your time in Hawaii is a lot better than Indianapolis just because the deal size and also the profit margin is a lot higher. So this one deal in Indy versus one deal in Hawaii, the return is a lot greater in Hawaii, right? Just because of the deal size. Now looking on the mainland, looking for like let's like a two, three, four, five, $10 million deals, the same kind of like time that you're putting into these deals, the return is just even greater than what we're doing in Hawaii. And so we're just trying to scale up in price point and then also just in asset class so that the return on our time is also greater. So that's kind of like the next step as far as like the iteration in your on your level as an investor as an entrepreneur.
Okay, that makes sense. I get where you're coming from. Now, throughout the years of, 3, 4 years or more for the real estate investing, has it always been easy? Because you said, you bought the first deal in
Hmm.
Indianapolis, and then you just kept snowballing. You bought five more that year, and then I'm sure more so after. But it couldn't have always, I'm assuming, hopefully, not been super easy the whole time. Was there any like, can you remember any specific problems or scenarios or situations where you're like, this is tough? Because I think that's something that not a lot of people share on the internet.
Uh-huh.
because they just want to share the good. But can you remember anything that
Yeah,
you can talk of?
it's funny that you say that, but I feel like my whole life as an entrepreneur, as an investor, is it's just proud. You're just facing problems every single day, all day,
Yeah.
and so like just to maybe take you back to that very first deal in that we did in Indy. The at the time it was like so I was working a 9 to 5, and then like I had like meetings and stuff, but then I was trying to get on the phone call with like brokers, I mean like contractors and wholesalers, and so like I'd have to like kind of like make an excuse to like leave the office, like go into the hallway, have like these phone calls, be on the thing, then go back and like I'm trying to. I mean, it was a crazy kind of like time to just kind of like juggle like the work and also like the investing at the same time. And then that first deal, like the we had a contractor or who's I interviewed a bunch of different contractors, right? The contractor, like they tell you everything that they want to hear. They will give you pictures every week, and we'll do all good work. Then okay, we hired him. Then 1 week into it, no pictures, like bad communication. Luckily, he was still working on the job, but then at the very end, he actually kind of kind of dropped off and didn't finish the project. And so we actually had to bring in another we brought in a project manager to help us like finalize actually finish that project for us and to kind of get us over to the finish line. So that was like a small like little hurdle that we had to overcome. And then come time for like the refinance, when we went to the bank to refinance it, the appraisal came back at like $70,000. And so I was like, what? This is like there's no way it's worth 70,000. Like we bought it for 70 and like it's we fixed it up and there's a lot of comps like in the thing. And so I was looking at his the comps he was using. Like one of the comps he was using was this house that was bought like just down the street for us from for $60,000, similar square footage. But was actually on the market right now for 150 because as another flipper bought it at a discount and they're selling it. But his comps was only like this recently sold, right? So he had like a 60,000. There's a couple other comps that was just like, hey, these are like not like for like, and so I was just like, okay, you're just trying to problem solve like how are we gonna do this, right? And so just trying to think creatively. Okay, so I'm gonna submit a rebuttal. I'm gonna show all the cons, but I might have to go with another lender, start the whole refinance process again, and just make this thing happen, right? So we submitted our rebuttal to the appraiser, thinking like he's gonna raise it to like maybe like 100 or he's not gonna like. I mean, he's not gonna raise it very much, right? But lo and behold, he's like, kudos to this dude because like he said, oh, you're actually right. So he actually came back with a new appraisal for 140,000.
The
So
same guy?
the same dude, yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, like kudos to the dude for admitting his mistake, but I mean, like
Yeah.
it's we were not expecting that, but it's just like a hurdle you're trying to overcome, right? And so I think the whole journey of like the investing in general, like just look at my like the path is like in the very beginning, no money. How can you solve this, right? Okay, let's take some loans from my 401k, take some loans from lines of credit. Okay, you're just trying to solve the next problem to get to the next level, and I think it's a constant of just like problem, and the better you can get at solving these problems, the faster you can kind of like move forward as far as your journey is going to go.
100%. I think it's hilarious that the same guy made it 140. That was 60 initially. Dang. But yeah, like that's the life of an entrepreneur and real estate investor. You're solving problems all the time. Where I think we're professional problem solvers.
I think so, yeah.
And because the people on the outside who are, I guess, not yet in doing business in any kind of business, they hear these stories and are like, wow, like, you run into that, you do all this work, you buy a property at 70, you put 30K into it, you're 100K in, and they're like, no, it's only worth 70. You're like, whoa, like, they'd freak, like they just don't know what to do. But then it's just, okay, let's break it down. Let's do, because I think every problem can be solved. We just break everything down into little baby steps. And that's really all it is. So I like that story because that was your first one. That was the first issue
Yeah.
going. But was there ever a time where, maybe not because you were also W-2 at the time, was there ever a time where you're like, okay, my money's going low. Like I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do right now. I don't have as much access to money. Um, Even, I don't know, recently because of the recession. Have you been hurt at all from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the last 10 years has kind of been, or like in just like real estate in general, it's just been a straight upswing on like the market. So like a lot of like mistakes are overlooked, or like the good deals turn to great deals, or like not so great deals turn to good deals just because of the market. But I think now we're experiencing like a small downturn in the market, and like we actually took our very first loss for like the like just recently in our last project. And so like it's been like a string of like just like wins for the most part. But with the new markets shift and everything, we probably got a little overzealous at that point, like buying a little bit too tight deals and things here and there, made a few other mistakes. But then we actually took our very first loss for like the in our project over here. And so like it's a big like eye opener, but also like just like a ego like it's, kick your ego to like those like just like the a loss. But I mean, it's at the end of the day, like it's just another problem to solve, another thing to overcome, and it's nothing that I'm worried that's gonna like I'm like I feel crushed or like upset about. Just okay, this is a loss. There's a lot of lessons that I'll be learned from this. Moving forward, we're gonna be better, and it's gonna make me a better investment entrepreneur in the future.
Yeah, and I think so. The same thing happened to me. I took my first loss as well, ever in real estate. I was like, "Whoa!" Like, and then I had to really look at the numbers. I'm like, "How did this happen?" And you just look at everything, every detail. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay, I misbudgeted this. The ARV was way lower. It took this much longer to sell." And I'm like, "Okay, now I know." Now this is the first downturn that for me, I've experienced. I'm young.
yeah,
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you too. I'm assuming. So yeah, it was a definitely a learning experience. So I'm happy you shared that because I think a lot of us have to go through those losses and the mistakes because that's how you learn. You can definitely learn from wins. You can learn from your wins, other people wins, other people's mistakes and your mistakes. But
yeah.
your mistakes always hit hardest, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. You learn lessons always like your mistakes.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
they hurt.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like it's like that. It sinks in deeper. You like the lessons are sinking deeper. So like reading or watching other guys make mistakes, like you learn like a little bit, but it's never like as a big lesson as when you make it. Just because like yeah, it hurts the most and like actually really sinks in. So
100%, 100%. So I guess for you, um, what are you looking to do now? Like for the people listening, how can people help you who are listening? How can they reach out to you and what are you looking for? Deals or anything?
I mean, we're looking for we're always looking I think as an investor, you're always looking for two things, right? Deals and money, and that's kind of like the lifeblood of your business. And so you're always looking for opportunities to to partner or to find deals with other investors, and you're always looking for deal opportunities to partner and to like to fund deals together. And so like we're kind of like more in the capital raising stage, I think now, just because we have some like really good opportunities that are coming our way, and so we're just looking for like investors or partners to kind of help us along on that path. But after we saw that one, it'll probably be like, okay, now we're looking for like great deals again. And so it's kind of like a never ending cycle of like we want to like find great deals and great and good funding and just kind of marry those together and just kind of like drive these projects together as like kind of as a whole or as a team. So.
Gotcha. So someone had money, they had a lot of money and they're like, hey, I like this guy, I like listening to this guy. I want to reach out to him. How can they contact you?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to us on Instagram, Daniel Kong 808. It's funny, I actually had like a segment recently on our local news had like a little smart thing of a short thing about our one of our projects, and just I talked a little about like the how we typically on our fixed income projects we're using like local like mainland banks to fund our projects, right? And we'll pay them like a high interest, like 12% like annualized. And so if we borrow like $1 million, we're paying like a $10,000 a month to these guys to do our projects, right? So but then, like, as opposed to paying like these like commercial lenders and vendors, why is there any way we can actually give this money to like our friends and our family or the other people here in Hawaii? You know, and so recently we've been partnering more and more with them. So as opposed to giving like that $10,000 a month to like these lenders, we're giving it to auntie and uncle down the street. They took a HELOC on their house for like 500,000, and we give them $5,000 a month in just passive income for the duration of our projects to in for the opportunity to like loan us that money for the projects that we're doing. Like, you know, so it just
Yeah,
was yeah. I mean, it's just like I feel like it's a win-win because like auntie and uncle get to get some like passive income that they would normally not be like have access to. We get to fund their projects and they're secured by real estate. Like, you know, it's like they don't have to, we'll do all the work. We're happy to do the work because we're going to make also money on our end. But at the same time, we have like the opportunity to like pour some of this income or the profits into some of our friends and our families or other investors.
100%. And yeah, I think that's how I think of business, man. It's I think of it as everyone gets to win. Business done right.
Mhm.
It was something I experienced with my first deal ever, and I was like, whoa, like it was cool. Like I got paid, the tenants got a place to live, insurance guy got paid, lawyer, lender. Like I was like, everyone got money somehow, some way. I was like, this is interesting. And the same thing with that, like with lenders, and I like how you think of that.
No,
So
it's fun.
dude, yeah, go ahead.
No, so I mean, like, it's when I first started, like, I think my journey of real estate and just entrepreneurship, I always thought of business as like there's a winner and a loser, right? So there's one guy who's gonna win a negotiation, and one guy's gonna lose. But if you kind of look at a good business or like strong business in general, it's not like a zero sum game. There's opportunities where like let's say like that's an amazing hat, like Justin, like I'll give you $100 for that hat. And then you're like, oh, I would love to have the $100 more than this hat. So like, I'm super happy because the hat's worth way more than 100 to me. So I'll give you the 100. You're like, hey, the 100 is worth way more than the hat to me. So you'll take the 100. And so like the just like capitalism in general is like this. You're making all these win-win situations. Like, so for instance, the lender example is like, hey, we want to borrow $1 million. We're happy to pay 12%. We're happy to pay you $10,000 a month for the duration because we're going to make a lot more on the project ourselves. The person who's lending the money is like, hey, like I'm happy to lend my $1 million for like a 12% return because I don't have to do any work and it's safe and secure, and I guess just collect those checks. And so like both sides of the equation are winning because like we both are like reaching our goals, and we're both kind of like what we're getting in return is way more than what we feel like we're giving. So
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think a lot of people see business that way. A lot of people see capitalism and business as people who just take money.
mm,
And it's until you do business yourself, you're like, wow, like no, everyone out there, like the big retailers, like you see Nike and stuff like that, like no, like we're buying stuff like that because it means something to us. We
yeah.
want it. So I like how you put that. I think it reigns true for me and a lot of business owners out there. Now, if you had a message you just wanted to share in general. It doesn't have to be for real estate, business, whatever. But if like you have an overarching message that you want to get out, what would the message be?
I think on the journey of just like my these last 4 years has been like really like life changing for me. I think just what I feel like the curtain of what's possible in the world has really just been pulled back, and like it's I feel super lucky, super grateful for what we've been able to like achieve and accomplish in the past 4 years. And I think there's a lot of people out there who think that like it's not for them. It's like it's cool things and these opportunities are that these people do. Like listen, you and myself, like I could never achieve doing these things like $50 million houses or whatever it is that we're achieving or running a podcast show. Like it's not I'm like I could never do something like this. But I think the it's one like, I guess like the big thing I take away that I've got for the last 4 or 5 years is that like these opportunities are super available to anybody who's willing to just go for it and put in the work. And so a lot of times I think it's just we're our own, like we restrict ourselves just because like we just don't think it's possible. But you just need somebody to just open up your blinders of your eyes and your mind and say like get around other guys who are doing these things, and you'll see like we're just normal people. Like like you look at these multimillionaires. I used to like really look up to like these flippers here in Hawaii. I was like, oh, this guy, like this my friend Corey Minamoto, Richie. I was like, these guys are so cool. Like I would like to be like them one day. But after doing some business and like I'm getting in like a some success, I realized they're my peers, and these are just normal people. And like all like these super successful people, even Ryan Pineda, he's an amazing. I mean, like he's an amazing dude, but he's just a normal guy. And so like a lot of times, like I think like we shortchange ourselves as to what's possible if we versus just like if you just to like open up your mind to just see like, hey, normal guys can do great things, and you're just a normal guy, but then you have the opportunity to do this just as much as we are.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. It's so huge because it's true. All the people that I met from online, the big influencers, you look up to them like crazy, and you meet them like they're still great, but it's like, oh, like I could do this too. It just makes you believe in yourself even more.
Mhm.
And I see it. It's funny. It's finally I can see bits and pieces when I meet people in person at like the mastermind events and stuff like that. People are like scared, like dude, and then they talk to we have conversation like, oh, like you're just a normal guy. I'm like, yes, I'm a normal guy. So no, that's true. Like I want everyone out there to really take that message seriously. Is just believe in yourself and know you can do it. Know that anyone who you're trying to imitate or copy and take ideas from, that you can do it too. You don't have to be special. You just have to put the work in. So
Yeah. One of the biggest things I think that actually opened up my mind was just getting in rooms with like successful people. And I think like if there's a difference between like you hearing it like on the radio or like on a podcast saying like, hey, you can do it. Like it doesn't really sink in. Like it comes in your brain, but it doesn't sink into your heart, right? But like you get in these rooms with these guys who are very successful that you look up to, and you just spend like a day with them, like hours with them. It just there's something about it that just it sinks from your head the belief down to your heart. Like okay, actually I really genuinely do believe that like I can achieve this because like these guys are number one, they've achieved it. So I think just getting in the room, sometimes you have to pay to get in these rooms, but like it's the whatever you can do, like so like I think Pinhead's conferences or the masterminds or whatever you can do, like just get in the rooms with these guys who are like successful, like that's really gonna open up your minds, kind of like launch you for it as far as like what you can or what's possible.
Yeah, and it's true. Just get around the right people, get in the right rooms, and you'll be shocked at where your life takes you. So, dude, Daniel, I appreciate you even being on, man. It means a lot to me. I know the audience will love this story and just hearing your stuff. But I appreciate being on. And for those of you who want to reach out to Daniel and bring him some private money or anything else, or just want to give him appreciation for the show, I'll have his social media links in the description in the show notes below. But otherwise, thank you for listening. Peace.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Mhm.